Is the Diablo 4 community setting itself up for disappointment again? That's a really good question. The answer is probably yes, though.
Starting with some Diablo 4 news, the game launched this week on Game Pass on PC, Xbox One, and Xbox Series X and S, meaning you can play Diablo 4 for free as long as you are a Game Pass subscriber.
That's a lot of boxes, and hey, that's the only way people are gonna play Diablo 4 at this point, if we're being completely real.
To play on Xbox, all you gotta do is download Diablo 4 from the Game Pass app, but on PC, a couple more steps. You'll need to download the Battle.net app, set up a free Battle.net account, and hook up your Battle.net account to your Microsoft Store account. I do think it's a shame that the game comes to Game Pass right before we get what will probably be its best update ever. I think they should have held off for Season 4, but hey, at least people will have time to finish the campaign, I guess. Also this week, ray tracing was added to Diablo 4 on all supported platforms, PC, Xbox Series X, and PS5. This adds more realistic lighting, shadows, and reflections, and also comes with some other updates to ambient occlusion and contact shadows, making them look a lot better. We also have the Mother's Blessing event running until April 2nd, 10 a.m. Pacific time, which is basically a bonus XP and gold event. Everyone gets 35% more XP and gold until then. This week we also got the
gold, that resource that matters so much in Diablo 4, as we all know. You know, the not useless resource.
Massive patch notes for the upcoming massive test server changes. We've covered the highlights of the reveal of the new changes and new systems in this video over here. Be sure to have checked that out. Really promising stuff in there. In fact, it all seems so promising that even a lot of the Diablo 4 haters are admitting that this is looking great. And a lot of the community is...
I mean, yeah, kinda. But I also talked about this. If the bar is this slow, everything looks great, and every time anything new comes out, it's interesting. So, you know, I want to see what everyone's going to be saying about this update 2 weeks in. 2 weeks in. Let's see what's the sentiment 2 weeks in after the update.
Is hyping itself up big time. But you know what happens with high expectations? They can lead to big disappointments. I think this is the most hype we've been for anything in D4 since its release. Are we setting ourselves up to be let down? Well, yes. Let's reiterate the major changes we know about.
I mean, after season of disaster and disappointment, now that something actually looks palpable, finally, you know? After all this time, and knowing Blizzard's track record, and especially, you know, the Diablo 4 team's track record of not even playing their game, I mean, the hopes are there, but you know, it's gonna be a struggle, okay?
Again, they're completely reworking the Codex of Power and Aspect system.
Finally.
Now, whenever you salvage a legendary, the Aspect automatically goes into the Codex of Power, no more stash clutter. They also removed a ton of the highly situational gear affixes, like damage to bleeding enemies, and added some more exciting ones. They added a new crafting system where you can add...
Bro, I can't. I just can't stomach this when people say, oh, they removed damage on Tuesdays, and instead of damage on Tuesdays, they just added basic plus damage. These are not... This is the thing I'm most disappointed about. This is not making the game more interesting. This is not making the game better. This is just literally saying, hey, here's more damage, and that's it. That's literally it. Here's more damage and cooldowns. Have fun. Ooh, that's not gonna work in the long run. There's a reason Diablo 3 completely busted, and, well, one of the reasons was exactly that type of itemization. Because it was only plus damage numbers that mattered. Nothing else really even remotely mattered.
Add even more special affixes to items. They changed the blacksmith upgrade system into an endgame system called masterworking with more depth, more steps, more longevity, and nuance to it. They're also adding rare greater affix drops. They're adding an endgame mode similar to Diablo 3 Greater Rifts, but expanded upon. Minion builds in general are getting big buffs. Maybe we'll have endgame competitive minion builds now. They're also...
I'm interested in the minion build buffs, because again, Necromancer minions were just not a real thing. The Keystone didn't even do anything.
Also opening up trading to pretty much everything, other than uber uniques and items that you've crafted on. They're also adding Uber and Dariel as a new Uber boss, and they're adding level 200 versions of all the Uber bosses. They're reworking Helltide. Now you can access it in World Tier 1 and 2.
Nice.
And Helltide overall now includes the best elements
From level 5, by the way.
of Season 2 and 3. And they're finally giving players the ability to zoom out. People have been asking to zoom out the camera since beta. We also learned from League Class.
It sounds so good, but then you actually get your head out of the gutter and remember, wait a minute, half of these changes were things that people begged from Season 1 and the developers didn't add for some stupid reason. Oh boy.
Designer Adam Jackson on Twitter that they're updating the Uber Lilith fight to give better visual clarity to her attacks and make the hitbox of her waves better match the visuals. Also, her waves will no longer be one-shot mechanics, they'll do heavily ramping damage as you get hit. These are all great changes to address complaints we've had about Uber Lilith since the start. Also, Pez Radar.
Yeah, all of these great changes needed to happen in the first week of the game being released, honestly. So, you know, again, if it takes us almost more than half a year to get the basic shit down, oh boy, I mean, it's gonna be fun for a while, boys.
Radar confirmed that Glyph XP will be boosted in Season 4 as well, meaning you don't have to run as many Nightmare dungeons to max out your glyphs. But to dive into a few more specifics in the patch notes, again, the patch notes were over 10,000.
No one's gonna run Nightmare Dungeons. People are so done with Nightmare Dungeons, everyone has given up on even playing them, honestly, at this point.
1,000 words long. Some of the new affixes that we're getting on gear include resource per second, so just flat passive resource generation. That's huge for thirsty builds like Druids and Barbarians. We got resource on kill,
useless.
Life per hit, a huge sustain buff. Lucky hit, apply vulnerable. This gives opportunity for any build to not have to rely on skills to apply vulnerable. You can just stack lucky hit chance. And also basic skill rank. This will help builds based on basic skills be more of a thing. Gems are simpler and more useful now. They give bonuses to core stats and fewer conditions on their bonuses. Forgotten Souls can now be farmed from Whispers as well. And any elites can drop them. So you aren't locked to farming Helltide to get them. But they're also massively improving and overhauling Helltide. We're going to want to do Helltide more now. For a while, I was hoping that they would...
Yeah, the Helltide changes are the thing that sounds by far absolutely the best, honestly, right?
Permanently add the Season 2 Blood Harvest event into the game. It's just super fun. But now I get why they aren't, because they're taking the best aspects of it and just making it a part of Helltide. As you kill monsters in Helltide, you'll generate threat. And there are 3 threat levels. Each level increases the frequency of monster ambushes on you. And at maximum threat, a crazy big ambush happens, ending with a Hellborn spawn, which is similar to a Bloodseeker from Season 2. And that, of course, resets your threat. On top of that, you're going to find chests that drop hearts, and once you collect 3 hearts, you can use them at a...
By the way, that's pretty cool and whatnot, but the biggest problem with Helltide is the density. The fact that packs of monsters can stack in this small of a circle on top of each other, and that they were too far spaced in between, and there were not even packs of, like, you know, rare mobs. It was just bad. As long as they don't fix that core aspect, and the fact that cinders just automatically get picked up, not just you need to pick right over them like a complete moron. God, why can't they fix that? It's so dumb. You know, when that gets changed, these Helltide, the Helltides by themselves are going to be much better. So mechanics like this aren't necessarily even necessary, even though it's good that they add them, if they just baseline fix Helltides.
Ritual location to summon another demon ambush with the boss. Nearby players in the zone will be alerted and they can join in. Again, this is bringing in the best parts of Season 2 and 3 overworld events where you can end up with a chain of random players spawning these waves of bosses over and over, taking turns going round robin as we put on our mats, with everyone just reaping the rewards. World Tiers 1 and 2 will get a nerfed, easier version of Helltide with less monster density, no falling meteors, and no roaming bosses.
Why?
Then, the new endgame mode, the Pit. This starts once you reach World Tier 4. You're going to get a quest to complete a Tier 46 Nightmare Dungeon. And once you complete that, you'll then start to get rune shards as drops during endgame activities. You use rune shards to open the pit at an obelisk in Karagar. It literally looks like the Rift Obelisk from Diablo 3. Inside the pit, you have 10 minutes to kill enough monsters to summon the boss fight, so a bit shorter than Diablo 3's 15-minute rifts. If you kill the boss before the full 10-minute timer expires, you unlock the next tier of difficulty of the pit, and you get masterworking materials to upgrade your gear.
That's
if
good.
you don't complete things in time, you still get...
Like, this and the Helltide system are the biggest wins, probably. Because it just, you know, you do one thing, you get bored of it, you want other activities to be available to you. This is that other activity. That's good.
Regular loot and XP, of course, but no masterworking materials, and you don't unlock further difficulties. If you kill the boss with 4 to 6 minutes to spare, you unlock an additional tier of difficulty, and if you have 6 or more minutes to spare, that's jumping you up 2 additional tiers. And the pit has apparently hundreds of tiers of difficulty, so I imagine, just like Diablo 3, it's designed to be virtually infinite, but just like Diablo 3, one day someone will reach the max pit level, I'm sure.
Have anyone done that in Diablo 3? I didn't even know that it is a max level, huh? Because the end game of Diablo 3 is the worst thing in the history of ever. And that is essentially, you open up a rift, you enter it, and there's a basic zombie, you know, the slowest, useless, the most zombie ever. And you need to literally nuke him with every single thing that you have, and maybe then it's even not still dead. That's how bad Diablo 3 gameplay is at the end. So, I'm not a fan of these infinite types of, you know, difficulty progressions. I like the idea of infinite characters power progressions. I have talked about this previously. A great example of something that just works tremendously well is Vampire Survivors. That thing is amazing. It has gold eggs. You can unlock gold eggs. Gold eggs give you a boost of 0.01 something. And it shows how many golden eggs you have on each character. And it's amazing. It doesn't matter that, you know, getting 100 eggs probably means that you are roughly 0.01% only actually stronger. It's the fact that you know you have them in its progression and it feels great. But Infinity Dungeon scaling, that does not feel that great. Especially if they do it in the style of Diablo 3. That is my absolute biggest fear. Because when that end game gets solidified, people hate it. People absolutely fucking hate end games like that. It just doesn't work. It's not fun. Yeah, sure, maybe someone like Rax is gonna push it, but it's literally not designed for almost anyone but like a small, extremely niche group of people. It is what it is.
But I doubt it's gonna happen for at least a year. Also, if you die during a pit run, you can respawn, but you're docked 30 seconds. Your second death docks you a full minute, and your third and all subsequent deaths dock you 90 seconds. So death is more punishing than in Diablo 3. You can run pits in a team, but the person who opened the pit gets the most materials, and only the person who opened the pit has a chance of getting the summon materials needed to face Tormented Echoes. These are the level 200 versions of the Uber bosses who have better drop rates. The deeper in the pit you go, the more likely you are to get these summoning mats. Now, getting a little more granular into items and class changes.
Okay.
In addition to the new Tyrael's Might Uber unique, we're also getting
Tyrael's Might! That's from Diablo 2. That's like a super rare item. The rarest item, I think.
Blessing unique. It's a pair of unique boots that give a 30% chance to cast a non-mobility, non-ultimate skill that you currently have on cooldown whenever you use another skill. Now, not all builds have terribly useful boot slot items, so I can see some builds easily working this item in. Then for the Barbarian...
It sounds like just one more literal, oh yes, this is 100% gonna be a thing. Also, how does this work with Necromancer's Blood Mist? Is that again complete infinity and vulnerability?
Barbarian, we're getting Ariat's Blessing unique pants, which makes the ancients you summon much more awesome. Korlik makes an earthquake, Talik creates dust devils while he whirlwinds, and Madoc sets enemies on fire with his upheaval. Hopefully we'll see more ancients usage with this. I'm a little dubious though. We're getting the promised nerfs to Charge and Hammer of the Ancients. Charge is having its damage and cooldown nerfed by about 33%. It hurts, but it doesn't kill Charge.
It doesn't matter, because we already know, because they showed items for the Season 4, that there's going to be items that are literally, hey, here's plus charge cooldown damage. So it doesn't change actually everything, you just need to find affixes that are minus charge cooldown ratio. And that's kind of it.
Furious Hammer of the Ancients is reworked entirely, from dealing more damage per fury spent to having more crit chance per fury spent. This is actually a huge, huge nerf. More damage is always better, but at some point, more crit chance doesn't really matter. You either crit or you don't. Having 99% versus 100% is kind of irrelevant. This combines with the nerfs we're seeing to overpower damage that Barbarians are dishing out to mean we're not going to be seeing as many of those big bonks anymore. One-shotting enemies left and right with...
One-shotting bosses left and right, you mean?
Hammer of the Ancients. This ought to bring Hoda back into a more reasonable position. It'll likely still be a viable build, but I think it's going to be dethroned now. We also got a nerf to the Martial Glyph's cooldown reduction for shouts to further try to move away from the multi-shout meta. They did buff the aspect of Echoing Fury to compensate, and they renamed it to Vocalized Empowerment. Now it's going to generate over twice as much fury per active shout. We're also seeing lots of buffs to Dust Devils. They're really trying to make Dust Devils a thing. They're also adding synergy with Double Swing. Specifically, the Windlasher aspect is getting buffed.
Yeah, you see, this is also one of the things that I don't like that Diablo does, okay? They look at the skill and they're like, oh, we need to make this a thing now. Other games don't do that. Path of Exile, Last Epoch, and so many other games that are actually successful and liked don't do this, okay? They don't look at already existing skills and say, hey, we're gonna add 3 things that makes now this a viable build, enjoy. No, they don't treat their players like, you know, some kind of undisciplined idiot children. They just add things that have cool effects, cool synergies with a lot of things. They don't just look, oh yes, we need to make this more viable, typically. Sometimes they do, but typically they don't. Unless a skill is completely unused, they won't typically do it. And they just add things that change stuff. Diablo 4 doesn't do that. Diablo 4 looks at, Fireball for sorcerers and says, oh my god, no one's using this. Let's give it a 500% damage multiplier. And there you go. There you sadly go. That's how it works.
Now, every time you double swing, you generate a Dust Devil. And you get 3 Dust Devils if you cast double swing again within 2 seconds. So you'll just be spamming Dust Devils all over the place. I do wonder if the servers will be able to keep up, honestly.
I mean, it's cool, but again, you see, that's just treating your players like animals. You're too stupid to figure shit out for yourself, so we're gonna make everything instead for you. The Meteor Source build. They literally put a whole goddamn build on just a single helmet.
We've had issues with that in Diablo 3. At some point, it was with Dust Devils. Dust Devil builds were spawning a ton of Dust Devils, and it was causing server lag. But moving on to the Druid, we get a new Earthbreaker unique ring that makes Landslide cause the ground to erupt in tectonic plates over 2 seconds. And if you cast Landslide in this area, you get a 30% chance to create additional landslide pillars within it. This sounds like a fun interaction. These are the kinds of powers that I really like. Things that alter the way a skill behaves rather than just a numerical buff.
Same. Though, pushing things like Dust Devils like that is dumb. But, I love things that change how things play. Not just, add 10% more damage. This is why I'm not a fan of the affix change. Will it feel better? Yes, but let's see how it is 2 weeks in.
Buff. The Druid also gets quite a lot of love with regards to resource generation, which has historically been a pain point for Druids, especially early level.
Early level it sucks, but late game it's like, hello there, infinity resource generation.
Energized Spirit Boon now restores 20 spirit instead of 10. Huge. Prime Petrify now also generates 50 spirit when you cast it. turning into a spirit potion.
Okay.
Aspect of the unsatiated now generates spirit better. You gain 20 spirit after killing an enemy with shred. The mangled aspect was also reworked hugely to improve how it generates spirit. Now, while in werebear form, you just flat out gain 25 spirit every 8 seconds. They also classified debilitating roar as a shout skill. And the Night Howler's aspect now also makes Blood Howl a shout skill. And this is important because now druids can use that barbarian shout aspect that just got buffed, the vocalized empowerment, getting resource per second while a shout is active. Druids have so many more tools now to build resource. The Necromancer gets the Ebon Piercer unique amulet, which makes Blight shoot 4 smaller projectiles that pierce enemies.
Blight? The skill that's kind of honestly a meme? Okay.
Again, a cool skill-changing item. And then the Cruor's Embrace unique gloves mimic Diablo 3 functionality and make Blood Surge consume corpses to cause mini novas. Very cool. Necro's Blood Mist no longer slows
the blood surge is already kind of absolutely off the wall.
Your movement. And the Blood-Soaked aspect, which previously removed the movement speed penalty, now instead gives you a 20% move speed bonus while in Blood Mist form.
Yeah, no one's going to use that stuff.
Now Necros actually have a mobility skill that feels like a mobility skill. You move faster while in Blood Mist. Golem can now be activated while you're crowd control to grant you unstoppable. Decompose has an explosion added to it. Army of the Dead got a 50% buff. All interesting changes that should help us see more use of these skills. Then tons of changes to minions. Skeletal warriors will now run ahead of you more often to initiate combat. Shadow mage attacks now pierce, big. And the second upgrade on cold mages makes them apply vulnerable on every hit now. A big reliable source of vulnerable. The first upgrade on bone mages.
The basic one sucks. It's
mages was fully reworked. Now it grants them a 25% chance to cast Bone Splinters or Bone Spear if you have those skills equipped on yours.
Oh, nice! That's amazing! Yo! That is so cool. It's finally time for me to play a Bone Necromancer. I haven't still done it. And I absolutely love the idea of, using minions as a viable way of actually playing, because there's the amulet. Oh wait, you're not gonna be able to stack the amulets. That's so stupid. Well, I guess you're gonna play. I guess you're gonna play blood surge without minions, because there already is the amulet that makes your minions do a mini nova. So now you replace it with an amulet that makes you consume corpses and do it. I guess it's cool, yeah, technically. So man, you can't stack them. That's so disappointing. That would have been so many blood novas. That would be crazy.
Skill bar. I think this can be a huge boon to Bone Spear builds. Now that minions inherit all your bonuses. I think if you're a Bone Spear Necro, then the Bone Spears that your minions will throw will...
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go physical damage, corpse explosion, Bone Spear build. That's what I'm gonna do. And with seemingly skeletal mages. Nice.
Be considerable damage sources. Again, similar to a Diablo 3 build, where the Bone Spear build, basically the Masquerade build, it's your minions are throwing Bone Spears along with you. Then the Bone Golem's first upgrade now just spawns 5 corpses flat out when you pop it, similar again to Diablo 3. So you can generate corpses on command. Overall, we're seeing a lot of D3 Necromancer influence.
Okay, that's technically kind of good, but I don't think you want to use a Golem anyway. I don't know, the Golem is usually the sack one. Even though Golem's stun generation is really good. And the Golem damage is actually also pretty good. But, Necromancers that rely on corpses suck big. You know why? Because the corpse generation, I think it's bugged. It doesn't work on bosses. You hit the boss, and either there's an internal cooldown for that thing against bosses, or it's bugged. I'm pretty sure there's an internal cooldown. Because for bosses, the minions don't generate enough corpses, even though they have even the melee minions that are supposed to do that, they don't generate corpses, even though there's like fucking 5 of them swinging at an enemy, which means technically there's 1 corpse generated a second, but that doesn't happen. You yourself hitting enemy bosses doesn't generate corpses a lot of the time. I don't understand it unless you have Shaco. I think it's pretty much impossible to passively generate enough corpses.
Well, it's now being brought into Diablo 4 in the best of ways. The second upgrade of Bone Golem now casts bone spikes whenever it takes damage. The Iron Golem's first upgrade casts its shockwave more often now, and it deals a ton more damage, like 5 times more damage.
Yeah, I have no idea what the Iron Golem's thing is, because the Iron Golem looks completely ass.
The second upgrade no longer applies vulnerable, but instead pulls in enemies, giving Necros another grouping tool outside of corpse tendrils. They also consolidated the 2 different aspects that increase your max number of skeletal warriors and skeletal mages into the same aspect.
Oh, finally! That thing was so annoying.
And then made the leftover aspect now give a 70% buff to skeletal priests instead. And lastly for Necros, they buffed the
so that's the heal? Okay, that doesn't sound good or impressive though.
Ring of Mendeln. Now every 6th attack from each minion is empowered. It used to be a very situational lucky hit buff. So again, hopefully we'll see minion builds now become competitive with all of these changes. Okay. For the rogue, we got the new Scoundrel's Kiss unique ring that makes rapid fire now lob exploding arrows. That ought to be cool. Again, a nice skill changer there.
Okay.
The aspect of high velocity is being added to make barrage arrows now pierce through one enemy and gain 20% attack speed. That pierce is huge. That's potentially basically doubling the number of enemies hit, therefore doubling your damage out.
Hey, I was talking about this. We don't need aspects for this bullshit. We just need that baked into the base skill. We can. Why does Diablo 4 have skills that are not usable in the baseline? Why does Diablo 4 have skills that are only usable if you sacrifice like an item slot or 2 for them to get aspects on them? Why? How does that make sense? It's so bad.
Output. The rogue is getting tons of buffs to grenades. Lots of aspects buff grenade damage now. Seems they really want to make a grenade build a thing. And they're adding a lot of synergies there as well.
Oh, they wanted to make it a thing before. And I played Rogue and I was looking, wait a minute, these grenade trap things, they kinda could pump. Turns out, no, they can't. It's not enough. But, it's not missing a lot. It's not missing a lot. So, adding something to grenades probably is going to make it viable. But again, please just add things that are overall good, not just, treat us like brainless monsters.
They're also giving the rogue more ways to heal or sustain. The aspect of Siphon Victuals now gives you a 20% chance to get a healing potion to drop when you hit a vulnerable enemy with a non-basic skill. That's something that we should be able to do basically all the time as a rogue. And the aspect of Lethal Dusk will now grant you stealth whenever you evade through an enemy infected by Shadow Imbuement. And whenever you break stealth, you regain 25%.
Why would you ever evade through an enemy that has Shadow Imbuement on it, though?
% of your max life. These can really help squishy rogues sustain in combat longer without just making them outright tougher.
Bro, if you're pressing Shadow Imbuement, you're going for the kill. You're not thinking about sustain.
Overall, I really like this approach. The rogue maintains its identity as someone who is fragile, or at least more fragile than a barbarian, right? You can't just make everyone feel big and tanky, but you also want rogues to be able to live through fights, so it's doing it not by making them be able to take more hits, but just be able to heal faster. Then for the sorcerer, we get the Fractured Winterglass unique amulet, which we spoke about last time. That's the Frozen Orb amulet that makes Frozen Orb have a 50% chance to spawn a random conjuration when it explodes.
Dude, that's so insane.
And on lucky hit, those conjurations launch Frozen Orbs. Really cool interaction.
That is gonna be... Dude, I'm actually thinking maybe Source is the way to go, because that sounds insanely good.
Action there. Sorcerers also get the Flameweaver gloves. When you cast Firebolt through your firewall, it splits into 4 firebolts. Again, just really cool interaction.
I mean, it's cool, but why can't we just have that by default,
Synergies. You know, Diablo Immortal, I know, don't boo immediately. One really cool thing that Diablo Immortal did was it had skill interactions where I cast this skill, and then if I cast this other skill through that skill or on that skill or somehow make them interact.
Yeah, I get it. I get it. It's a cool interaction, but it worked because that game didn't have anything else for it. It's a completely different game from Diablo 4 the way you play it. So, interactions stolen from Immortal are not gonna work necessarily for 4. That just sounds tedious.
It does this additional effect. I feel like the game needed to do more of that, and more of those ideas needed to be brought into Diablo 4, so I'm glad we're seeing that now. Other games do this. Path of Exile has interactions where if you shoot through your firewall, it, you know, empowers your attacks. So more cool stuff like that, please.
Yeah, but Path of Exile is a different game. And also, that's not really too popular in Path of Exile. The zoom, zoom, zoom type of thing is popular.
Then the flamethrower aspect will make Incinerate split into 3 beams. Again, skill-changing effects. These are really cool.
Wow.
Overall, basically, instead of giving us more options in the skill tree, they're putting skill-changing effects on itemization. It's a different philosophy. And it's why I said that having a more basic skill tree is...
Dude, only took us 4 seasons to get here. Only took us 4 seasons. Only 4 seasons, boys.
Isn't inherently a bad thing, because if you're able to heavily customize your skills through other means, then the skill tree doesn't need to fulfill that purpose. It comes down to preference, and yes, I do like to have the skill tree be more meaningful. I wouldn't mind a more expanded skill tree, but that's a different discussion than this skill tree being small is inherently bad because it doesn't let you customize your character. You can, however, argue that you would rather see that customization put on the skill tree rather than put on itemization. Now, all the sorcerer's mastery skills
you can have it on both. There is no problem. Just generalize the itemization upgrades. Again, as I said,
are now also tagged as core skills, which opens up more possibilities for builds. The cheat death mechanic on Flame Shield is gone. Instead, the Flame Shield activates once you have taken 100% of your health in damage within a 30-second window. For Hydras, you now have 2 Hydras as a baseline. That's straight up just doubling the power of Hydras. The aspect of Splintering Energy was changed to have Lightning Spear always cast another Lightning Spear and increase all your lightning skill damage. Hopefully this lets...
What is a Lightning Spear? I don't know what a Oh, sphere! I thought he said spear. Okay, I get it.
Let's us see more Lightning Spear builds. It's a really fun skill. And then the unique item, the Staff of Liam Neeson, has had its damage to close enemies replaced with ranks to charged bolts. This is big. It seems overall they're trying to make non-ball lighting builds more of a thing now. Then for non-class specific changes, they nerfed the aspect of disobedience. This was basically a must-have defensive aspect for almost all builds. Nerfing it will hopefully decrease its pervasiveness and see a rise of more varied defensive aspects. The aspect of...
defensive aspects in Diablo 4 don't work at all. Like, it's not that defensive aspects are too strong or whatever, it's just the fact that Diablo 4 monsters aren't balanced. You can do completely fine against everything, and then you just encounter a rare mob that does the charge attack jump thing, and it one-shots you. And there's literally no amount of defense in the game that you can equip that it doesn't one-shot you. Fix the things!
The Crowded Sage was reworked to give you 8% more dodge chance, and dodging restores 20% of your max life.
Wow.
Again, going with the rogue theme of better sustain, since rogues are the ones that will most benefit from having dodge chance. Similarly, the assimilation aspect has been reworked to give you 8% more dodge chance, and dodging gives you fortify equal to 25% of your max life. Again, going with the rogue.
I don't know about the rogue, boys. Rogue was my least favorite thing by far, honestly. Anyway, that was Riker. The Diablo 4 stuff, pretty good. And this was Quizzer Sin. Thanks for watching. Subscribe if you haven't already. Have a nice day. Bye-bye.